Hey everyone, it's Kelly at PicoPixl. So, over the last few weeks, we've been taking a look at how AI can be used to assist with coding, so-called vibe coding. We used it to build our retro game website, PicoPixl.com, and we've also used it to build a number of browser-based games that we've made available on the site. Overall, it's been a great experience, with some games being easier than others, but in general, we've been able to use the AI to get good results. However, I've had a few questions come up about why I've been using Claude over other AI services, and the honest answer is that it's the system that I found the best results with a few months ago when I set out to start this project, and so that's what I went with. But it's a fair question, and so I thought I'd spend a video doing a comparison against a few different services to see if anything's changed recently, if I should consider going with one of those other alternatives, or if Cloud AI is still the best option. So let's take a look at what I found out. But first, if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps spread the word to others, and it helps to make sure you don't miss any new videos. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be testing a few different LLM services to see what advantages and limitations each one has. For this test, I'm going to check out ChatGPT from OpenAI, Claude AI from Anthropic, and Gemini from Google. To come up with the results, I'll be doing some qualitative rating in a few different categories. First, speed, which is how quickly the AI was able to generate an initial result. Second, assistance, which is how many times I had to intervene and give further guidance to get us to a good outcome. I'll give each AI 2 free reprompts, and then I start deducting points. And then third, like I said, the outcome. After working with and guiding the AI, how happy was I with the results? Again, this is a mostly qualitative category. I've made a bunch of games using AI, and I have a standard that I'm trying to reach, so when I feel like I've hit it, I'll end the test. As an aside, I also used Claude to build the rating system visualization that we'll be using, and I put it up on the website. You can see the URL in the video, or check the description for the link if you want to try it out. Finally, in order to control some of the variables and make things fair, I have a standard prompt that I'll be using for all 3 AIs. We're going to be making Pong, which should be a pretty good baseline test, and I've given enough additional information that the AI should be able to generate something playable without too much work. So with that, let's get started. Okay, up first, we're going to be testing ChatGPT from OpenAI. This is probably the most well-known LLM right now, being one of the first big players on the scene, and I actually use it to generate most of the thumbnails on the YouTube channel, so I'm excited to see how well it does in our test. I'll go ahead and load in the prompt, kick it off, and let's see how things go. Okay, the first pass is done, and it took less than a minute, which is pretty fast. We have to go up and kick off a preview, which is a bit more annoying than Claude, but not a big deal. Giving it a run through, the overall design is nice, and the UI looks good. However, it looks like there's a problem once we get into the game. The CPU is ready to go, but the ball never kicks off. If we take the code out of ChatGPT and put it into an actual HTML file, things work a bit better. The ball actually goes into play, but as soon as a point is scored, it goes back to center position and it refuses to move. Overall performance seems a bit slow as well. Let's go back to the ChatGPT interface and give it some feedback. We'll speed things up as it regenerates some of our code, and then when it's done, we'll try it again. Okay, this is definitely forward progress. It removed some of the visual enhancements, which is a bummer, but it definitely helped with performance. Looks like the bug with the ball getting stuck in center position is gone as well, so that's good. However, I noticed that the game canvas is cut off with how I've sized my browser, and at one point the ball ends up getting stuck in the CPU's paddle, which is obviously less than ideal. Let's get it some more prompt guidance and see how it goes. Okay, definitely better. The ball doesn't appear to get stuck at any point, and the game canvas looks more responsive now. However, it's a bit tough to know if the ball is going to go out of bounds during play, so let's prompt it one more time and ask it to put up some border walls. Okay, I'm willing to call that good. It's a very playable game of Pong. Again, it's a bummer that the performance optimization step ended up removing some of the nice visual glow effects that it had initially, but ultimately, if it doesn't play well, it won't be much fun. If I was doing the game for real, I might try to work with it a bit more, but I think we've got what we need here. So let's take a look at the results for ChatGPT. Speed was great. It got to the initial result in less than a minute, which is super fast. I was expecting more problems with such a quick generation, but it honestly didn't do too bad. Definitely willing to give it top marks on that one. 3 Picos. For assistance, it wasn't too bad. It's pretty normal to have to give some feedback, just like working with a human developer, so that's not a surprise. Like I mentioned at the beginning, 2 freebie prompts, and it gets a point deducted for an extra prompt. 2 Picos. Finally, outcome. I think the biggest disappointment here is that I know what I'm missing because it had a really great design at first, but stripped it out for the sake of performance. I'm not going to ding it too much though because it's perfectly fun and playable, even if it could look a bit cooler. 2 Picos. Okay, for our next test, let's take a look at Claude by Anthropic. So Claude is a bit newer entrant to the field compared to ChatGPT. It's what I've been using for most of my videos so far, so I'll try not to be biased and give it a fair assessment. Let's load up our prompt and see what it can do. Alright, it looks like Claude took about 3 minutes to generate our first outcome, which is definitely slower than ChatGPT. It's not terrible, but it's noticeable when you're waiting for results. One thing I do like about Claude's interface is that it automatically runs the code for you to preview, so there's no extra step needed there. Taking a look at what it gave us, I'm impressed with the aesthetics right away. The effects look really nice. There's a subtle glow around the paddles and ball, and the overall visual design feels polished. The game moves well, the paddle response feels good, and the gameplay is solid out of the gate. I do notice that the overall ball speed could be adjusted a bit, and it'd be nice to have a score tally and play again button at the end. So let's give it some feedback and see if we can improve that. Perfect. With just one assist prompt, Claude was able to fix those issues. The ball speed progression feels much more balanced, and I like the post-game options. The game's really fun to play, has good responsiveness, and the nice visual polish that makes it feel like a complete product. So, for Claude's ratings, on speed, I have to give it 2 Picos. It was definitely slower than ChatGPT at 3 minutes, but still within a reasonable time frame. For assistance, it gets a full 3 Picos since I only needed one prompt to get to a great outcome, well within our freebie allotment. And for outcome, I'm giving it 3 Picos as well. The game is fun, it's playable, has good aesthetics, and it didn't require stripping features to make it perform well. Finally, let's check out Google's Gemini. Now this is the newest of the 3 services we're testing today, so I'm curious to see how it stacks up. Same process as before, I'll load in our standard prompt and we'll let it work its magic. Okay, Gemini took about a minute to generate its first result, which is pretty fast. It's on par with ChatGPT and definitely quicker than Claude. One thing I noticed is that, similar to ChatGPT, you have to click a button to prototype with Canvas after the code generation is done. It's not a huge deal, but it's a bit annoying that it doesn't automatically run the preview like Claude does. So looking at our first result, performance is good, game runs smoothly, but I'm noticing some issues right away. The ball is really small, and it's not very visually appealing. The text for the score is also cut off and hard to see. And there's a bigger problem. Sometimes the ball goes off the screen entirely and never triggers a point being scored. So let's give Gemini some feedback on these issues. Okay, second generation definitely helped with some of those problems. The text is more visible now, and the ball doesn't go off the screen anymore. But I'm noticing that the ball moves too slow overall, and it doesn't account for angle bounces very well, which makes the gameplay pretty boring. So let's ask it to fix that. Okay, now we have a new problem. The ball can sometimes go through the top of the paddle, which definitely shouldn't happen in Pong. And when the ball does bounce at an angle, the angle's too extreme, which ends up slowing the gameplay down while you wait for the ball to reach the paddle. So let's give it another prompt, and we'll try to have it get this right. Alright, I think we've got it to a good enough state now. The ball physics are working properly, it's not going through paddles anymore, and the angles are more reasonable. It's a playable game of Pong, even if I'm not in love with some of the aesthetic choices. So, for Gemini's ratings, on speed it gets 3 Picos. It was just as fast as ChatGPT, and definitely faster than Claude. For assistance, I'm giving it 2 Picos. I had to prompt it 3 times, which means 1 point deducted from our baseline. And for outcome, I think 2 Picos is fair. The game works, and it's playable, but the aesthetics aren't my favorite. Unlike ChatGPT, it never started with a great visual design that it had to sacrifice, but I'll give it credit for maintaining what effects it did have while keeping performance solid. Alright, so when we tally up our scores, Claude comes out as the winner by a single Pico. Claude scores 8 Picos total, 2 for speed, 3 for assistance, and 3 for outcome, while both ChatGPT and Gemini are tied at 7 Picos each. So, I think the result validates why I've continued to favor Claude over other services for my game development videos, though as you can see, it's pretty close. There's definitely areas where each LLM does better or worse than the others. ChatGPT and Gemini are faster, but Claude needed less assistance and I think delivered a better final outcome. So it really just depends on what you're prioritizing in your project, but for my game generation needs, I still think Claude's the best option available right now. Okay, so thanks for watching, folks. Hopefully this comparison was interesting and useful for your own AI-assisted coding projects. We'll be getting back to actually building games in the next video, so make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching, and see you again soon.